Hello, everybody. This is our Monday night broadcast. I'm Dina Dynasty, one half of La Maison de Rouge, and thank you all for joining us today. It seems like there's quite a few people already rolling in, and for good reason, because today we have the marvelous Maitresse Madeline Marlowe.
Hi, Tia. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Madeline. It's so wonderful to have you here. And for our audience members who don't know who you are, the very few, Madeline, your pronouns are she, they.
Yes.
Madeline is a queer femme daddy, international dominatrix.
True.
Madeline's approach to femdom has been described as tormenting through pleasure, sadistic romanticism, and behavioral spellcasting. Their erotic films delve into the power dynamics of femme-led relationships for all genders, experimental pornography, and psychological domination. She has special interest in the mysticism of controlling the prostate and using it as a tool for transformation.
Yeah.
Madeline has been involved in grassroots sex work activism since 2013 and believes fiercely that full decriminalization is the only way to work towards keeping all of those involved in the sex trade safe. And I absolutely agree with everything. And I'm so excited to talk to you about all of this because it is very much in line with how I want to craft my life as well.
Fantastic.
So I just want to remind our audience members to be very polite in your commenting and asking of questions. And we also will be taking questions toward the end of the interview and not right this second. So please be patient. And if you have something that you're just dying to ask, go ahead and write it down so you don't forget. All right. So, Madeline.
Yes. Hi. Welcome to my virtual dungeon.
You are sitting in the throne. It looks like
something. I know. It's my throne. I've had it for a very long time, and I have since brought it from my dungeon space to my virtual dungeon space at home because I've been spending so much time interacting with my subs online. Mm-hmm. During COVID, so.
And everybody has had to do that in some way. So it's nice to kind of like bring a little bit of the dungeon home.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, how did you, we'll start from the very beginning. What was your first kinky experience? And it could be sexual or non-sexual.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is sexual. Their sexual experiences. I'm sure I had fantasies and things before this, but when I was a teenager and I was dating predominantly young men, and I would always ask them to tie me up or tie me up to fuck me or do this, and I recognized that I was intimidating them. Like really bad. Like a lot of them were like, no, I'm absolutely not doing this, or there's something wrong with you. And then when I was about 16 years old, I met the first love of my life, and they were born male at birth, but were trans, and they have since then passed away. So that's why I'm saying past tense, yeah. Mm-hmm. But they were very encouraging of me to explore dominating them, and mostly like the first time I ever put a strap-on, and they went out and got the strap-on for me, and it was this ritual of sliding it on over top of my legs, and I had no idea, you know, I mean, I was a teenager, but as soon as I had this tool, you know, or this extension of me, it was like all of a sudden this power came over me. I felt very, very powerful with this, you know, extension.
Magic wand.
This magic wand. And it was the first time that I ever fucked somebody in the ass. And without touching them, their genitals or anything, they were easily be able to come from anal sex. And to me, that was just my first exploration into like sexual power, you know, and power dynamics. And
what a thrill.
Yeah. And I mean, there was no question. I was immediately hooked. And from there, I started to try to seek out like-minded people. And I grew up on the east side of Detroit, so it was there. I didn't even know where to start, you know? So it was for a very long time, just the two of us exploring these kinky things as teenagers, but we had really no blueprint how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think back, I do recognize and remember the power that I felt during that. And I'm so thankful for the experience with my ex and just introducing me to sex in a different way. You know, not sex and just isn't always just, you know, P in the V, penis in the vagina, you know what I mean? And exploring how power exchange and other kinky acts can be just as rewarding as P in the V to orgasm, you know?
Yeah, sometimes even more so.
Well, yeah, exactly. So then it was just straight to figuring it out and falling in love with leather and falling in love with, you know, just the whole structure of DS relationships and things like that. But it took, I mean, this is a short version. I was a teenager. It took many years, you know. I've been a sex worker. Well, I've been a pro dom for 15 years, and next year, it's 2021. It'll be 20 years that I've been a sex worker.
Amazing.
It's
so
crazy.
You seem to really enjoy maybe the exploratory aspect of this and finding out more for yourself, as well as, you know, helping other people find out for themselves too. So like, I guess the evolution of this the evolution of your sexuality sounds like it's an exploration. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about like some of your most recent discoveries?
Sure. Let's see. Well, sure. Actually, this is a great segue. I know we were talking a minute before we started the broadcast. I am in a femme-led, I call it a femme-led relationship, because I do identify as she, they. And so, you know, female-led relationship quite doesn't fit how I identify.
Right.
And my partner, who is submissive, as my submissive, and we live a femme-led relationship, is also exploring their gender and have come out as non-binary, well, masculine presenting, non-binary, trans femme. And so we together have been exploring what that means for our relationship. And it's, first of all, is just a relief to finally be able to just state out loud what their identity is, what my identity is. And it feels good because we have, you know, been navigating through spaces for so long, and when people look at us, you would think we were this heterosexual couple, you know, and it's so far from what we present as, you know. And also, you know, because of we're also erotic filmmakers, and we do experimental pornography and whatnot, so we have this whole new, you know, people used to say, oh, well, you're gay for pay. Well, you know, we talk about my partner being cis for cash.
I love that. I love it.
So we have just really been, it's really exciting to explore the femme-led relationship with coming into our own gender identities and coming out about our gender identities. And it's really, I don't know, it's really not that different from a female-led relationship, but obviously there's things that come up being queer, and, you know.
Yeah, and I'm curious about the, I guess, the fluidity of your you know, the dynamic between the two of you, or your sexualities, or your genders within within this femme-led relationship too.
Yeah. So we fluidity is so important. Especially in this relationship, as far as negotiations are. We are. I mean, every month is changing. We're always negotiating. We're checking in. We have an open relationship in the sense where we do discuss seeing other people or bringing other people into our relationship. We do that, but it isn't a free for all. You know, we definitely have conversations if there's somebody else that we want to play with ahead of time. You know, we have these conversations ahead of time, or if we want to bring other people into the relationship for play or things like that. So there's constant negotiation going on. And some months it might, for whatever reason, you know, I'm not feeling comfortable with, you know, sharing, or they're not feeling comfortable with, you know, another femme, you know, being dominant over them. And so these things have to be talked about and constantly negotiated. As far as just our day-to-day life, it's not high protocol. It's all intertwined into our daily life. Our grocery shopping, making dinner, feeding the dogs, you know what I mean? Cleaning the house. And we intertwine the DS and the kink and all of that into our daily lives. It's pretty naturally, you know, it's very natural. But then life will get in the way, you know, things happen. The world,
it always does.
Is a dumpster fire. You know what I mean?
And it's not like, it doesn't sound like your partner would have any issue, like kind of handling things by themselves if they didn't have you to direct them, you know.
Absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because I think people talk about femme-led relationships, and I have a lot of subs or new subs, or, you know, especially now, you know, doing a lot more virtual work, talking about wanting to be in a femme-led relationship. And there's a lot of misconceptions, you know, because boy, that doesn't mean that I just make all the decisions forever and do everything, and, you know, you just sit back and chill out, you know. I definitely don't want, my partner can make their own decisions and run their lives, and that's very, very important to me, you know. But it's the little playtime in between that, you know, heightens the DS dynamic, and even the, you know, it's like foreplay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You know,
and it's almost like the electrical parts, you know, the like, of course you have your daily lives where you guys are doing stuff and whatever, and then the little like the bits that are more charged, you know, are maybe the parts that have a little more power dynamic in them.
I mean, even, you know, something as small as, or I don't know, some people, we live in a bubble, so I don't know what seems small to some people. Like, hey, like, you're gonna wear this butt plug while you you know, you're making me my breakfast, and I'm gonna sit back and enjoy this with my feet up, and just like little things like that. You know, this is your reward to wear this butt plug while you make, you know, breakfast for me. And when you talk about little electricity,
and that sounds totally fair too, but really fun as well, because you're you know, definitely feeding yourself, which is necessary part of life as well. Multitasking. So I'm curious about how all of this plays into your career as well, and your self-described behavioral spellcasting.
Yes.
I really would love to hear about that, and maybe kind of like how the evolution of your career has led to that.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this earlier because I was like, we're going to talk about this, you know? And so, like I said, I've been a sex worker for 20 years. Well, it'll be 20 years next year. And when I first started out doing sex work, and I've done pretty much everything under the sex work umbrella, except I was never a stripper. I missed that one.
I did that, and I mean, it was fun for a minute, but it just didn't have the depth and dimension that I hoped for. So maybe.
So when I first started out, sort of, I wasn't going to call myself a dom, but exploring being dominant professionally, and I realize now that what I was doing was I was performing for the men that I was working with or sessioning with. And I would listen to what they wanted, and then I would, even if I was topping, I was performing that for them, what they wanted. You know, and that's, you know, you start out, you don't really know about how to flip that, you know, you don't even recognize maybe, you know, that this is happening and that they're really topping from the bottom. You know?
And you're a service top.
Right. And as I got older and as my career moved forward, and, you know, I had mentors and different experiences, both professionally and personally, I recognized that I needed to start speaking up. And also, I wanted to solidify what it is that I wanted out of these relationships.
Yes.
You know, and you know, I'm just eating literature and just devouring everything that I could about it, and coming into my own and my own confidence, and recognizing that it's important for me to be able to speak about what it is that I want. And then also the men who come to me now, generally, if they're new, they're curious on how to please a woman, first off, or a femme. They often want to be dominated by a woman, but don't know where to start. And they often have certain things about their life or their personality that they want to change to make them better, enlightened, transform. And so spellcasting, behavioral spellcasting, I think I would explain it as you know, once I start to develop a relationship with a sub, and we set goals, and I understand like the transformations that they want to happen, and then also tying in what I want out of the relationship. It's like dropping little intentions, little seeds,
Yes.
without them even knowing it.
Yes.
You know, because I think I have a lot of men that come to me who are like, what do you mean? Like, you know, oh, sex is sex. Like, but I'm interested in this, you know, I don't know why, what's wrong with me, you know? And so I think that if you just, especially, you know, for just developing a new relationship with a sub, it would be difficult to just, you know, you don't want to just throw it all on them all at once. So, you know, spell casting, you know, is just dropping little hints to change their behaviors in ways that they don't realize that is even happening, that is going towards their goal. And then all of a sudden, you know, months later, they'll go, wow, Maitresse, what did you do? You like, I'm a better person. My life is feels more fulfilled. I've lost weight, or I've, you know, whatever it is, you know, that they want to do. How did you do it?
Yeah.
You know, spellcasting, behavioral spellcasting.
Yeah, I love that. It's I mean, it sounds like partly subconscious programming and a little bit of life coaching in a more subtle way.
Yeah.
But I think that your term behavioral spellcasting also has like a mystical quality to it that I absolutely love.
Yeah.
Being in Femdom, because, you know, Femdom is kind of like, I think, a connection to the divine parts of the feminine and the masculine within all of us.
Absolutely.
That we sometimes forget are there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's good to balance that out and also kind of express it in ways that other people can pick up on it, but not necessarily in a conscious way.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a soft landing too. I mean, again, I feel like I live in a bubble because I've been doing this for 20 years, and I, you know, have a DS relationship at home, and I often forget that. I mean, that's quite a privilege, you know. So the subtlety of the spellcasting is a nice soft landing for people, I think.
Yeah,
You
it's the fantasy though. It's the kind of thing that people want when they text or when they DM you, make me your slave, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the absolute worst way to go about, you know, like finding that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's definitely the fantasy that you have to really make work in a realistic setting, and it's not all like fantasy.
Right.
So I'm also, okay, you talked a little bit about your career and about your relationship. And I'm curious also about how you got into filmmaking.
Yeah. Well, filmmaking is my first love.
Okay.
It is, it's my first love. As an artist, I mean, I can appreciate all art, but there's something about telling stories cinematically that blows my skirt up in a way that is, it's so hard. And it takes a team to do it. And it is organized chaos to create a movie. And then when you add, you know, sex and BDSM to that, there's just this whole other level. See, I have chills thinking about it. There's a whole other level and way that you have to go about creating that, because there obviously there's acting involved, but then when there's sex and BDSM involved, there's going to be real feelings and real reactions, and it just adds this whole other layer to that. I studied film in San Francisco. I was into film making prior to that and making my own films prior to studying film. My ex, I lived in Paris for a year because my ex was also studied film and did a semester abroad, and I did sex work in France for that year to support us while he was going to film school. But I would always, on my days off or whatever, volunteer at the film school to help out and, I don't know, act and do different things. So, you know, it just, I just love the medium. It's telling stories through moving pictures is,
it is. It's a very high form of art.
Yeah.
That involves a lot and, you know, many layers and levels of experience with chemistry through people and being able to perform and like you said, adding these other elements that don't normally, you know, it's more than just theatrics because you also are editing, you know, it's putting together this like other world. It's creating a whole other world.
I mean, the movie, I think, is made, I mean, no matter how, you could do all that you could do ahead of time and plan, and then you shoot and, you know, a million things going wrong. I mean, filmmaking is all about solving problems because making a film is one big fat problem, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the movie is made in the editing. You can throw, you know, you throw them all that you got, but the movie's made in the editing process.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And you're a part of all of the processes, right?
Yeah. So I did direct for a company for 8 years of my career. I was very lucky. I directed hardcore BDSM, Femdom, gangbangs, you name it. I did it. It was a great experience. I basically was given the keys to the most beautiful dungeon ever with all of the filmmaking equipment I could ever want. So that was awesome, and I learned a lot, but I am currently have my own production company, and just right now, especially during COVID, I've been really concentrating on my films and making them. And so I write, I direct, I perform, I do all the gaffing, I do all the set design, I do the wardrobe. I can shoot, but when I'm in front of the camera, I can't be the cinematographer, of course. But directing and cinematography are my two loves as far as making a movie.
That sounds like a lot of work, but also a lot of fun and satisfaction.
It is. It really is satisfying. Yeah.
So I wanted to bring in a whole other lens of everything that you do, which is kind of queering all of it, and talking about how you queer your films and you queer your experience in the femme-led, like the career part of what you do, and then also the relationship part of what you do.
Yeah. It's funny. My partner, we've talked a lot about how the past few years we've really had to come out as queer and own it and feel it, because there was always this feeling that we weren't queer enough.
I know that feeling.
You know, especially because of when we walk out in the world right now, people don't look at it, or, you know, we can navigate spaces and people don't see us that way, which, you know, is a privilege and also sometimes makes you feel bummed. You know what I mean? You gotta want to wear your queer badge, you know?
Yeah.
It took a while for both of us to be able to feel like a part of that community. And it really took us like reaching out to other people and realizing that we've been queer all along, you know? So as far as our filmmaking, and obviously my well, maybe not obviously. My partner also helps a lot with the movies that we make and whatnot. We've been really trying to concentrate on making the movies more inclusive of everybody. You know, so like everybody and anybody can jerk off to this. Everybody and anybody can understand and appreciate this and fantasize about it being a part of their life. So it has a lot to do. I mean, it's changing language a little bit, depending on, you know, I'm the subject matter I'm doing. You know, a lot of times when I'm addressing cis straight men, there's a lot of humiliation and degradation, and that's what they want. And I definitely do that. And of course, I'm not saying queer people don't want that either, but I have to broaden that a bit to be more, you know, accessible to different people, if that makes any sense.
I mean, yeah, to be more inclusive of kind of like your orientations and your preferences and pronouns and desires and even like genitalia when you're speaking in specifics too.
Totally. And so we definitely, it's a lot about the words that we use, but it's also the marketing. It's to be honest with you right now, it's taking a chance, especially, you know, being a sex worker who, you know, I'm because of COVID, a lot of stuff has turned virtual, and it's still marketing to straight white cis men is all, you know, right now is like the money maker, you know. So taking the chance to sort of broaden that lens but invite these men into it as well, and to enjoy it, is take a chance.
Yeah, taking a chance. What is, okay, since we're talking about things moving into virtual spaces because of COVID, what are some of the things that you enjoy about performing in a virtual space or inhabiting this virtual space more than in real time? Yeah,
I'm lucky that I've had a lot of experience doing both, you know. So the transition to, you know, not seeing, you know, people for the past few months in person wasn't, I mean, I miss that, but it wasn't, you know, foreign to me, you know. Being in a virtual space allows me to connect with more people faster, which can be good and bad, you know, depending on. I'm not interested anymore into the, you know, the submissives or wannabe submissives that come to me and say, "I'll do anything for you, mistress. What do you want me to do?" You know. I'm looking still to develop relationships with submissives, even if they're, you know, thousands and thousands of miles away. And I want to continue to develop those, because this is what I get, you know, fulfills me the most. And being in a virtual space, it's nice because, well, time isn't as much of an issue, you know, like we can schedule things at any time that we want. And then I get creative. I send out care packages to my submissives, and depending on what the care package is, we can play with that, you know, whether it's panties or a new toy or anything that has to do with maybe tasks that I'm giving them. That's been fun and interesting.
That's so thoughtful and generous.
It is, but it makes it more fun, you know, especially in times like this. I mean, everyone's craving that interaction and that touch. And I mean, that obviously is something that I miss very, very much from in-person sessions, but just I found like sending out these care packages for the virtual sessions that I'm doing with my subs has just heightened the experience for them and for me.
For sure. Yeah.
What else? It's fun because I do like change up my set often, and you know, that feels very theatrical to me, as opposed to, you know, my Dungeon Suite is, you know, set as it is. Not that it can't change, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, you can change your set according to your mood, or
changing the colors, things like that.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of like group experiences since, so that's been fun, you know, kind of kinky. I've hosted like kinky orgies for my subs on, you know, on my fan sites or things like that. I'm doing a prostate milking, like a collective prostate milking show this Thursday.
Wow.
Where, well, I'm only going to be in real time one prostate I'll be milking, but I've been trying to, you know, get everybody really psyched about it, that this is like a collective thing. This is going to be an orgy. I'm very good at like pulling. I love being in a group setting, and I'm very good at pulling names and talking and keeping everybody just kind of connected that way. And so I really thrive off of that. Again, it feels like organized chaos to me.
Yes.
Which I thrive in that environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds so fun.
Yeah.
Is this going to be on a Zoom? Because I wish I could see the gallery view of the Zoom of that.
It's on my website. It's on Worship Madeline. So I don't know. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm curious about something specific when you talk about behavioral spellcasting and having these like more transformative relationship interactions with your clients and your subs. Do you get them on board with your activism work?
Sometimes. It depends. I mean, it's not necessary for them to, you know, be out there and marching with me unless they want to. But it definitely comes into play, because often when I'm working with somebody and it is this transformative experience, they are often totally unaware about what sex workers are facing, what we're going through, all the spaces where are dangerous for us to be. And so once we're getting to know each other, things are progressing, that the politics definitely come into play, right? You know, and that's, you know, with the spell casting and dropping these little things here and there, they become more concerned with and selfless, and they want to know what they can do to help and be a better person. And it's like a very natural transformation. And that's what I'm saying. Like, oh, all of a sudden they're very curious about, you know, how can they help out? How can they, you know, keep us safe? What can they do? I want to learn more, you know? And that's just with dropping those little hints. You know, you got to take it slow. Yeah. I don't yell very much. No. You know, and I prefer to take my time. I prefer to develop the relationship slowly, and again, just drop those little spells, and then you just kind of sit back and watch them blossom. Yes, I want to learn from you. I want to learn. Are you gonna teach any classes? You know, I have people ask me that all the time. I haven't, not yet. I would like to. I've done some workshops in the past, when I was living in San Francisco. I'm based in Las Vegas right now. I've got a lot on my plate right now because it's a new project that I'm doing. So not yet.
Okay. Let's talk about your new project. What's going on with that?
Sure. So a lot of people maybe that are watching right now, one of the first where I dipped my toe into making erotic art or erotic films or femdom films was 2005. Mm-hmm. And this was when I was first coming into my own, is still learning how to, still learning about my own space and BDSM and DS. And that was when, you know, I was having that shift about, okay, well, I'm not here to please men. Men are here to please me, or my sub is here to please me. At the time, it was, yes. I was gearing things towards, you know, men at the time. And I have, oh gosh, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these short films, clips, and some of them are short films that I created back then that are just, it's funny to look back at them. And it's funny to look back at how far, I mean, it's funny to me to look back how far I have come. Mm-hmm. And so I recently, I've pulled them off of the internet years ago. And I still have people asking me like, where is that? Oh my gosh, like, this is how I learned about femdom. You got me into this. Those are the first time I have ever seen femdom, you know, short films on the internet. Holy shit. So I've taken all of them and I've remastered them. And then I'm currently reshooting them in the same type of setting with like the same type of outfit, but in my way, in my newfound, you know, coming into my own. Finally.
Yes.
And so,
that's really great.
And then I'm doing a comedy aspect of it. So after I shoot both of them, I have, you know, up on the screen the old movie, and I go through and it's hilarious. I review myself. And all the things that I used to do, or just laughing at myself, and so it's kind of they'll be sold as like a package. So
wow, that's brilliant. Actually.
It's really exciting because I really wanted to re-release all of these old clips and videos and films, but I was like, gosh, there's got to be something that I can do with this. You know, I was like, I just want to do the remake. It was back in the day. It was called Madeline is Wicked. So it's, Madeline is Wicked 2.0, and the remakes, and then the comedy involved with me just talking and laughing about my own transformation and coming into my own. It's been fun.
It's kind of meta too. It's almost like you're using your old films as sketches for the new you, and how, like when people say, well, if you could go back into high school knowing everything you know now, what would that look like?
Exactly. It's crazy. And also, I mean, it's funny because a lot of the films were with an ex of mine who is also submissive, and it's really strange to revisit all of those feelings and thoughts and that were going on during that time. It was actually, it's been emotional. It's brought up a lot of feelings.
For sure. And then do you plan on making the new versions with your current partner?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Because I chose not to do it with my current partner because our dynamic is very different than my old films. So I have somebody that I am working with who I've known for a very long time, that we've played a few times over the years, and we've had long discussions about the project. And so were really excited about it. And so, yeah, somebody
Okay.
totally different. And because I feel that the subject matter and the vibes and tones of these old movies work better with this particular submissive that I'm working with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of kind of like light, goofy questions for you.
Okay.
These will kind of be the end or the beginning of wrapping things up, and then people can ask questions.
Cool.
So first one is, what are your vices and virtues?
Oh, well, my vices. Oh my God, I've gotten rid of so many different things here.
You can't possibly have none.
Isn't that terrible? What are my vices? I stopped drinking. I stopped doing drugs. I stay up too late. I am addicted to expensive skincare.
Yeah, I mean, those all seem like they're halfway bad, but not fully.
What else is a vice in my life? Isn't that terrible? And I can't answer this question.
It's actually not terrible.
I'm like also, and I think the pandemic been going through like even just a personal, I think all of us have, transformation on just like the way I treat my body and my brain and, things that I would indulge in that maybe weren't the best for me in the past, whether, those were substances or just even, taking care of my mental health and stuff like that. So I've been really working on changing that because, when I was younger, it was always like live fast and die young. And now it's like, my partner and I are like, let's live fast and don't die. And how do we do that?
Or how about let's live really well and die when we're super old?
Or you don't die young. That's what I mean. Don't die. Don't die.
Don't die.
So yeah, I mean, I've given up a lot of things that were not serving me in the past. And I mean, I think that comes with life experience and maturity and
self-preservation.
I'm like, what other vice could I possibly?
Well, let's just skip that, and we can come back to it maybe or maybe not. But what about your virtues? It sounds like your virtue is that you really take good care of yourself and value your own health.
I do. I'm also disabled. I have an invisible disability, and I'm chronically ill. So for many years, I would try to cover that up with lots of things, substances, or diving into work. No work-life balance whatsoever. Maybe not having enough boundaries with my clients or my submissives, or even my partner, So, I mean, it is a work in progress, you know what I mean? But I'm very, very much into taking care of myself, and I'm hoping to experience opening up more pathways and synapses in my brain. I'm about to do 2 months of microdosing. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But I'm very much into how psilocybin can change thought process and how it could affect my disability. I was born without a balance canal. One of my balance canals were missing on my right ear.
Okay.
So it's a very rare condition, and it sounds like not much, and it's this little bone that like
Yes.
helps you balance. And I wasn't diagnosed for many years, and then finally I was diagnosed. But I had to like relearn. I had lots of surgeries. I had to relearn how to walk and how to balance and how to affect my eyes and all of those kinds of things. So
Wow.
yeah. So just really, I'm about to embark in this microdosing journey through with this group of people, and I'm very excited to see how that's going to transform my mind and my body, and even my BDSM experiences and my DS relationship. And I want to seek higher
Yes.
experiences. And
wow, I'm so excited for you, and to see, like how you come out on the other side of that.
yeah.
It sounds very transformative, like intensely transformative.
Yeah. So right now I'm doing a lot of prep work.
Mhm.
I haven't actually started the experience, but just the preparations. So
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like the way that ayahuasca is done. Like you have to prepare for it, and
exactly.
there is a certain ritual and ceremony around it, and then the integration of it.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
I know. I haven't talked a lot about it, so here it is.
Well, all the best to you for that. I'm sure it's going to bring you a lot of like illumination.
Yes, I sure hope so. I'm ready for it.
So last little silly question I have for you is, what are your sun, moon, and rising signs?
Oh my God, I don't even know.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Isn't it terrible?
No, it's not terrible, because not everybody subscribes to astrology, and that's why we have two questions, like in case one of them doesn't, in case one of them flops. So would you be ready to take some questions now?
Absolutely. Of course.
All right. I know that there already are a few questions here in the comments box. So let's see. We've got one. I'm Timbus.
Should I move over there?
I can read it to you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm Timbus says, Miss Madeline, I've watched a lot of your videos. Is public disgrace a quote unquote real part of your life? And you can always opt to say, I don't want to answer that.
Yeah, no, I can answer this question. I mean, so public disgrace was, for those who don't know, it was a hardcore BDSM website where we would go, we would take those femme submissives out into public spaces, and we would do a hardcore BDSM scene. Is it a real part of my life? I mean, those were definitely planned experiences. They were filmed. There was a lot of pre-prep consent legalities, everything. But the experiences themselves were all real, and the scenes and the intimacy between the dominant and the submissive were all real. And managing even a crowded space of people who might have never been to a sex party or saw a live BDSM performance, or been to a live BDSM performance where the crowd was encouraged to become involved. Me as a dominant having to manage all of that was all real, Do I do that in my personal life? I mean, we definitely play when we're, out and about in stores and things, but it's all very discreet. Or, you know what I mean? We're out to dinner and I don't know.
Yeah,
I
what
put
do
something
you,
under the table.
I think there's kind of this this funny thing about real, you know,
Yeah,
because what you're describing, of course, it was real to you, but it was also, some of it was staged, right?
yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, we
not
knew
all of
where.
it. Yeah,
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 I mean,
like some of it was pre-negotiated,
yeah,
but there was also room for it to kind of like take on its own organic chemistry.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely, and it
so
did.
yeah, and so like by real, you know, yes, it was real, but it wasn't just something that like happened out of, you know, like out of nowhere. Like it
Right.
wasn't just like you stumbled into this thing and it was poof, you know.
Yeah.
So
It was a planned experience, but it's planned so delicately that it can build organically as well.
right, right.
And so, you know, there were good and bad things about that, because when you're dealing with people outside of it, you don't know what's going to happen. So that's why it was really important for me to always be
Yeah,
on and aware and whatnot.
yeah,
But
and managing.
it was intense and very real.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so we've got another question here. Salome Paradise asks, as a new Daddy's sub, do you have any suggested readings getting more comfortable with submission?
Hmm. Readings, as in books, huh?
I believe so. Or, you know, maybe articles or
Yeah,
even
yeah,
podcasts, I would imagine.
yeah. Um, I always point towards movies, and films, because that's my favorite thing. I'm very. I took my honorific, which is, I probably would have picked something different later on if I would have known everyone was having such a hard time pronouncing it. But have you seen the movie Maitresse?
Um,
It's an
that
old film from the 70s.
I actually looked it up just now, and so perhaps is this something that you're recommending?
Yeah. That's what it's. I mean, there's definitely uh, the story. Um, I love the story because it shows that there's vulnerability on both ends,
Hmm.
you know, and I think that as this sub is asking, this new sub,
Hmm.
to be able to get more comfortable with your submission, you might it might be like a nice soft landing to understand that us as the dominant, as the top, are also vulnerable as well,
Hmm.
you know.
That's a really
And
good point.
right,
Yeah, yeah, we're all human, first of
right,
all,
because
and
yeah, I think a lot of times I have um we have newbies that come to me, and um they're so like starstruck, or you know, I'm sure you've experienced that. And um it's nice when they realize that, I mean, we can keep that, you know, DS going, but know that I'm also real and vulnerable, and that there's two sides to who, I mean, I hate to say two sides, because I feel like my dominance is a part of me, but you know, it's not like that all the time. So I
right,
think I like the movie because she really, there's two sides to her, and they do show that. I mean, there's a story behind it that gets a little crazy too, but seeing, you know, that a dominant also can be vulnerable,
mhm. And
also while topping, is might help you get more comfortable with your submission.
yeah, that sounds totally reasonable. And we are multifaceted beings, um, playing a role a lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
especially in a session or a scene.
Mm-hmm.
So so remembering that that is just one part of us and not the whole us, and how we, it's not who we are like 24/7.
Right.
That maybe that would help you in some way. Okay, next question. Let's see. Mistress Madeline, what do you love to use the most for ball busting?
Okay, you mean like implements, I'm guessing.
Or maybe like your foot, or
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if you agree with this, Tia, but using my foot is always the most powerful feeling for me.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I love, you know, accoutrement and toys and all of those things, but
Hands and feet.
hands and feet. I mean, it just being able to use my own body as a way to, you know, deliver beautiful pain to somebody.
Beautiful pain.
Yeah.
Sensual violence.
Yeah, exactly. Sadistic romance.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that one too. Okay, Timbus has another question for you. What does a pathetic, high-heeled slut like me do to blossom in organized chaos?
What does a pathetic, high-heeled slut like me do to blossom in organized chaos? That is, that's a tough one. Let's see. To blossom in organized chaos. Well, I'm guessing when this person, I could be wrong here. When you're saying organized chaos, I'm wondering if they're referring to what we were talking about earlier or their own lives, as you know what I mean?
I'll give you a little I'll just give you a little. So this person comes into every show and asks some really funny questions. I'll say that much. So maybe you can clarify, Timbus, because you're asking a funny question right now.
I mean, I can definitely answer the question. But I'm trying to understand where they're coming from.
Right. Yeah, and that might even be something that he doesn't know.
Like, does he mean how do I blossom into the pathetic high-heeled slut that I want to be in the organized chaos of my own life, and how do I navigate that space? And do you mean organized chaos because, you know, the people around you don't know what you do, or
he says, yes, mistress, what you said. So he's probably just wanting some time and attention. And I'm going to go ahead and go to the next question, which is, Goddess, what is the origin of Locktober?
You know, I was actually, it's so funny because this is the first time that I have actually, in all my years of doing this, the first time that I have really like, sort of played into the Locktober thing. Because I don't think that we have to have a month to celebrate locking away. Nope. Humans. But you know,
in
the time of you know, the age of COVID, Locktober, there has been a fun thing to do virtually, and a lot of the subs have been wanting it, so I've been indulging them on my website. But the origin, I didn't even know what the origin was, and I'd have to look it up again, but I swear to you, do you know what the origin is, Tia? I
don't.
I feel like it was something, I'm not kidding, that started in like Minnesota or Missouri. Look at this. Yeah, I could be wrong, but I actually looked that up just recently because, like I said, I haven't indulged in this.
It says the custom, which started online, celebrates the act of locking up usually male genitals in a cock cage, but there isn't like a specific.
There was something about when I was looking. Sorry, by an ancient custom. Yeah, it's hard to say. I tell you, I don't. It's hard to say. I don't. That's a good question. I'd have to do more research. You know.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that you could, Jean Gene Key 66. You could probably Google and find out, because we would all be using the same resource anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so next question. A few years back, you were directing an inclusive movie called Pink Boy.
Yeah.
Any updates on that?
Yeah, so I directed a short children's film. So, a few years back, I wrote. This was actually one of the biggest movies that I ever made. So I wrote, funded, from sex work. I funded the short film that I wrote about a young kid, 9-year-old child who was gender nonconforming, and had, just this a hard first 9 years of their life, and a mother who was very absent, and a grandfather who was who had dementia, and just this beautiful story of this kid blossoming into their own. And I actually sound edited it at Skywalker Ranch. That was the last thing that I did, and I finished the movie. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful film, and it was more of just like a labor of love for myself. And it was the exact opposite of what I usually do in making these erotic films, and I wanted to challenge myself working with kids. I hope this is okay that I'm going back and forth like this.
Of course.
And just wanting to challenge myself as a director to see just how I could do this. We shot it over 5 days, and it was wonderful. And I had a small releases, and that was it. It was more of a labor of love. It wasn't, I'd always meant to continue doing more of my erotic filmmaking, but this was something that felt like I had never planned on making any money off of it. It was something for me, and it was a beautiful experience. And I funded the entire thing by I had this client in San Francisco who knew that I wanted to fund this film, and so they ordered 2 custom gangbangs, like BDSM gangbangs, that I created for them. It was a very private, exclusive experience for them, and I charged them lots of money. I funded my children's film by doing these 2 really extreme private gangbangs for this billionaire. I mean, he's a billionaire,
I love it.
A little twisted, but
yeah, and that's what we live for.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that. That little story.
Yeah.
So, okay, next question. What kind of plots do you use in your stories?
Oh, God. I mean, obviously, I will, as far as fetishes are concerned, I cover all different types of, fetishes and niches. But the plots in my stories, it's always very important to me to display the power dynamics between the two people, and their backstories are really important to me, so that the people watching the films can relate. And so I try to, when I'm doing something bigger, I try to imagine myself outside of this bubble that I'm in, because I forget sometimes that I'm in this bubble. And I think a lot, like, it reminds me of, David Lynch is, I adore him as a filmmaker, but I think that he often takes these really normal, you know, just normal people, normal lives, and then kinds of flip them on the backside and drops little experimental and avant-garde cinema in it to make suggestions. Now I'm going off. I really, I like to do that in my film, again, the behavioral spellcasting.
Okay.
to help really transform people, because I know a lot of people who are watching my films are living in maybe the middle of nowhere and have nowhere to connect with things like this. And so I often get, you know, thank yous and letters and you know, gifts or whatever saying thank you, I've finally been able to come into my own. So the plots usually involve normal everyday people and how their lives can transform through BDSM.
I love that, because it's then, you know, something that people can relate to in the beginning, and then kind of like takes their brain to a whole different dimension of fantasy that they didn't even know was their own fantasy. I love that. Okay, let's see. We've got another question here. What advice would you give your younger Dom self just starting out?
Oh gosh. I should have, there's so many times that I should have stuck to my gut feelings, you know, in the beginning, even. I got a lot of, you know, we spoke about this earlier. I got a lot of unsolicited advice from men.
When do we not?
I suppose that still happens. I just know how to handle it a bit better now. So, you know, even back then, I know that, you know, I knew in my gut there, you know, that's not the way I think, and this isn't how it should be. And I should have, you know, I wish I would have stuck to my gut. But I mean, that, you know, you're young and you're learning and you're exploring. And so, those things happen. What other things would I say? I didn't have another one. It's funny. Like, you don't have to yell.
Definitely not.
You know, it's funny when I look back at, I'm doing this project, you know, and going through some of the very first, you know, little movies that I made, and there was a lot of yelling. I would raise my voice, and I realized how much just calm and quiet, and it can be so much more powerful. Even laughter.
Yes.
You know.
Agree.
And what advice? You know, we're all stop being so self-conscious, and you know, normal things like that. You know,
normal things.
Yeah.
I think listening to yourself is super important, and getting in touch with like what that sounds and feels like, because I think starting out, you know, you want to do a good job, and you want to be a good, you know, you want to make a good impression, and you want to perform dominatrix, but what is, you know, what part of that is the preconceived notion of dominatrix, and what part of that is authentically like your dominant self.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to untangle that, or even hear your own self.
And it takes a while to untangle that.
It really does.
You know, it just you have to continue to dive deeper into yourself. And I mean, again, I'm still transforming, you know.
Me too.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is so valuable about the work that we do and the positions that we hold, is that we are like, if we can be on that journey ourselves, then we can keep striving to be better and helping other people to like find their own best selves too through Femdom.
Exactly. And I mean, I'm so glad that you said that, because I'm continually trying to transform myself and evolve and whatnot, because it is important to me to be able to help guide people along that way. I know everybody has a little different, like, art, you know, I'm not a therapist, you know, I'm not technically a therapist,
Well,
but
yeah.
I mean, but we do coach people and we do guide people, and I think it's important for me to be able to be grounded within myself, and so it's a daily practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Let's do a couple more questions. Excuse me. Let's see. We've got Grunky. Do you have any current cuckolds? If yes, what's your favorite activity with your cucks?
Right now, I'm mostly working with, I'm not seeing people in person, and probably not. I might start diving again in December. I do offer cuckolding experiences, though. Right now, I've mostly been playing online with that. And my favorite activity with cucks?
Cuckolding.
Cuckolding. Wait, do you have any? What is your favorite activity with your cucks? You want me to be honest? It's really fucking graphic. One of my favorite things to do is to be on my hands and knees getting fucked from behind and have my cucks slide their head underneath, and so that they can catch all the beautiful drippings of our sex and our fucking, and have a front view of all of that.
And stereophonic view.
Stereophonic,
yeah.
And then just the bringing a cuckold into that dynamic and into that relationship, and then after the sex part and realizing that they are getting off at that moment after that, and it's almost like caring for them and talking to them through it and seeing them messy, and they're just in joy and so happy, and for me it's just I love it. I love it. I love fluids though, and all of those kinds of things, and so I like really messy activities with my cucks.
That sounds very much like the answer, that Grunky was hoping to hear. So there you go, Grunky.
I know that. Like, I mean, that's another thing, is that my sex and being a pervert is a lot. I use my sexuality and my sex and fucking as a part of my BDSM practice, and I know that can be controversial to some people. People go back and forth about it. What other?
If you're a dominant woman and that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. Yeah, I agree, and I think that that's a very powerful place to come from, because that is something that has been used against us.
Exactly.
And taking that back and owning that and being like, no, this is mine, and I'll get to use it to dominate you, and I'll get to use it in the way that I want to, not as like as a bottom to you, like I'm not some receptacle of your power. I am using, these are my things, and it's my body.
Yeah.
So it's very powerful.
I mean, it goes back to what we were saying. I was saying earlier, and the question earlier about like, what advice would you give to yourself when you were younger, and how I had that like switch flip where I was like, okay, well, I'm performing for these men what they want. Now I'm going to do what I want, but I'm going to use my sexuality. I'm going to use my tits, my ass, my cunt, and all of it, and I'm going to flip it around and use it against you.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? And I've had some pushback on that from through the years, but it's who I am and a part of the way that I like to operate, and it feels very, very powerful and lovely to take that back and use it.
Yeah, and it's your pleasure. It's like you had talked about fluids, and I definitely see a lot of times in porn, like hetero porn, the woman getting all like bukkakied and everything, and it's supposed to be degrading and everything.
Yeah.
But it's like, if that's what pleases you as a woman and that's what you want, and in a lot of ways, like, you're topping that out of the man.
100%.
And it's not about the activity specifically, it's how you do it.
Yeah.
That expresses your dominance or the power dynamic or lack thereof or whatever. So taking that and using that, in your own pleasurable sexual way, I think is something that could be done more, to express that women and femmes and usually the receptacle part of hetero porn is also like an empowering thing that you can do.
I agree. Someone said something to me once. They made a rude comment. They were like, "Well, you can't be good at both. You're either a really good dominatrix or you're really good, at fucking and sex." And I'm like,
what kind of narrow ass mind there?
I know. And they were like, if you professionally blend it together, you're gonna suck at one or the other. And my reaction was, look at my beautiful blender.
Yeah, right.
Look at this high power blender I got going on. You know what I mean?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a whole like kind of narrow-minded, binary kind of thinking that we are doing away with. Yeah. We don't need that.
Yes.
We are showing people all the different colors in the spectrum of what, owning our sexuality looks like. So last question. Let's see. We've got okay, which have you really enjoyed more, filming or starring in your work on kink.com?
Do you mean directing? Is that what they mean, directing or starring?
So directing or starring.
Yeah. So I'm a Leo, so I love showing off and performing.
Your sun sign is a Leo. Okay.
Yeah, I'm a
That
Leo.
makes sense.
So performing is, a part of me. I will always love performing. But I also love being the boss. So, and of course I love filmmaking. So, and I love the organized chaos. And so running a crew and taking an idea that I have and inspiring people and then watching it come to life and then, having the BDSM and the sex involved and those two actors being able to be comfortable enough to express their vulnerability and their intimacy within the space that I created to be filmed is like, oh, I love it so much. I love it so much. I get so much pleasure out of it. I like to watch it after. I love to talk about it with the people after and how they enjoyed it. But I don't know. I'm going to be, I'll probably be performing until I have one foot in the grave. So.
Please do, because there needs to be a range of ages of performers too. And that's another thing we need to normalize and take back the power of, just because you're not like young and childbearing age doesn't mean that you don't have worth.
Right.
So there's a lot that you're doing that's very groundbreaking, and I think that more power to you for that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so so any other questions that I might have missed? Because we are running out of time, you may direct to these Instagram or Twitter accounts, and if they feel like answering you, well, then you're gonna have a lucky day. And then we also have a couple more, a couple of websites here: worshipmadeline.com and also maitressemadeline.com. So that is how you can get That is how you can get in touch with the organized chaos.
I'm still curious about that question, actually.
I'm pretty sure that I know that what we were saying earlier, you know, he just wants to, you know, organize chaos with you. That's
I see. I see.
Yes.
You want to be in my organized chaos. I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And thank you everybody for you know, or just participating, listening, asking awesome questions. Thank you, Madeline, for being such an awesome, lively, beautiful, effervescent, and open-hearted performer, daddy, you know, just all the things.
Thank you. Oh my God, it's been such a pleasure, and it's so nice. I mean, the last time I saw you was the first time I met you in person in New York.
Yeah. That was at the museum.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I was a little starstruck. I was like, oh.
Me too. But I will never forget what you said to me. You were so, do you remember what you said to me?
No. Sorry.
I was like, I just thought it was just the most beautiful comment and ever. I think we were in like the reception area, and I know who you were, and you knew who I was, and then we were like, "Hi," you know. It was a little awkward, and then you were like, "Wow, I love your face."
Oh yeah, your face. I remember your face being like, it was almost like it was radiated in a way where it had its own light, its own glow, and
I was just like, oh my God, because I was also starstruck, and I just like, that was the most beautiful thing I've ever had someone say to me recently. So I haven't forgotten about that. So thank you. And then you kind of just walked away. You said, I gotta go or something like that.
I needed to recover from that and then come back and you know,
you kind of just walked away, and I was like, okay, that was beautiful. Thank you.
That is very. I'm socially awkward, so that's very, you know, unsurprising that I did that.
Well, I loved it so much, and I haven't forgotten it.
Glad. Awesome. Well, thank you again for being so generous with your time.
Of course.
And we will be back, you know, next week with Lucy and another guest. And if you would like to support us and all of these shows that we do with these wonderful people that also are very generous, please sign up to our Patreon. You will get many treats depending on which tier you subscribe to. And I hope all of you have a wonderful rest of your week, it being Monday, and there are 4 more days in the week. So good night, everybody. Good night, Madeline.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Au revoir.
Bye.